Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo, and tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Poobah, Senator Grinder, and Bam Bam. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some scotch, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 9th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a Cuban cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. Poobah will do a deep dive into the history of Ramon Allones, and Grinder will discuss scotch from the Islay region of Scotland, all among a variety of other things for the next hour. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair Ramon Allones, specially selected with 16-year aged Lagavulin Scotch. All right, so we have the Ras tonight, a awesome Cuban Robusto that I think we all love so very much. It's a 50 ring gauge by 4 7/8 inches. What are you guys getting on the cold draw on the wrapper?
A little sweetness.
Cedar, for sure.
Yep.
So this is a 2019 cigar, came out of a 50 cab box.
I'm with Bam on the sweetness. It's like honey.
It's really good.
It has like a toffee kind of.
Toffee's a good word.
It is.
It has it all, but it's very complex. It has earth.
Do you ever, the scent of Ticonderoga pencils after you sharpen them?
Oh boy.
Here we go.
Oh boy.
That's what I'm getting in the cold draw.
Number 2.
Grinder right into the esoteric.
I kind of get that though. I know what you're
I
saying.
have to say, so-
he's not wrong.
He's not. When you said in the past petrichor sawdust, I'm like completely lost. But you're actually correct here. I can see it.
Can we call it? But can we call it? It's very specific. But you're not wrong. It's woody.
My draw is perfect. I don't know about you guys, but oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
Same.
All right, boys, let's light it up. The Cuban Ramon Allones.
And they're
specialty
just pure
selected.
tobacco. It tastes like tobacco.
Yeah. They're so rich.
These are all from the same box, right?
Yeah.
The 2019.
Yep. 50 cab you got, right? I got a new lighter. It's the ST DuPont Defy Extreme, and Senator got one as well, and we could talk about that. But oh my gosh, the light on it is so precise.
In the 24 hours I've been using this, it's already changed my life.
Yeah.
Did you go halvesies?
What I did was I ordered it in both colors, and then I kept one, and I was going to return the other one, and then Senator ended up wanting it.
Can you send me the link, please?
Amazon.com.
By that he means, can you buy it for him?
I'll reimburse you.
Oh, fantastic on the light, gentlemen. Fantastic. So I would put this, as far as the lizards go, it definitely has become a core Robusto in this group. I mean, this is, for me, it's definitely up there as far as how much playing time it's getting in the rotation with the D4 and Epi2 and some of the other Robustos that we smoke. But just a fantastic cigar. What are you guys getting on the first light?
A lot of earthiness, a little bit of sweetness,
The
little
sweetness,
espresso bean
the sweetness
kinda
is strong
notes. Yeah.
for me.
I think toffee was a really good word that Poobah called out. What do we know about Ramon Allones? Long-standing Cuban brand, right?
Yeah.
Since 1837, I think, right?
Yeah. Since 1837. It's an important brand. It's an important mark in the history of cigars because, for reasons we'll get into, but yeah, 1837 to 1845 was kind of the window when both Ramon and Antonio Allones, they're brothers. But just a quick asterisk on that. The Antonio Allones, Ramon's brother, isn't to be confused with the Antonio Allones who became a part owner in El Rey del Mundo. So they like came to be in what you would call, I guess, registered in Cuba as an official kind of cigar maker, probably more towards 1845, around the same time that Partagas and Upmann, 1844 was Upmann, 1845 was Partagas. So Ramon Allones has been around, is one of the older marcas out of Cuba, along with Partagas, Upman, and Por La Laranja, which is also a very old brand. We should probably look at them and talk about them at some point. But
Well, I know Rooster loves them, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Rooster really
Yeah.
likes us. These Petit
Yeah.
Coronas are
I
very
had one
good.
last night, actually, the Galanes.
That's right. That's right.
So the official date of when the company was actually formally founded, it's kind of obscure. The Ramon Allones history, brand history overall, is a little bit obscure, but their earliest and kind of, I would call their most significant contribution to the cigar world, which is still relevant today, very relevant, is kind of multifold, right? So they were the first cigar brand to put bands on cigars. They were the first brand to develop cigar art, and actually developing up cigar artwork and putting lithography and cigar art inside of dress boxes. So this was the first company to do that. They also were the first to release the 898 format, 8 on top, 9 in the middle, 8 in the bottom, as well. So this is and that is interesting when you think about the impact that the company's had, because this is really how the industry presents itself to this day, which is through cigar artwork. I mean, across the board worldwide. Now, there's some companies who try and, I think, argue this, but from everything that I've read, it's generally accepted that Ramon Allones was really the first to do this. So putting bands on cigars, the cigar artwork, which when you really look at some of these dress boxes and you take a close look at them, it's some of this artwork is really gorgeous and beautiful.
Well, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the Ramon boxes, or that classic green that they have often.
Yep.
You think about the Bolivar box, the art with that.
Yep.
You know, even Rooster mentioned the other day, what was the cigar, the Panatella? Was it Rafael Gonzalez, you said?
Yeah.
It's not an artsy box, but they put a lot of pride into the presentation, you know?
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It's really cool. And that's neat, I think, about their history. It's very relevant. And what's also really relevant about Ramon Allones too, and what I find interesting, and you guys have heard this before, I think we talked about it on the Partagas podcast, is that Ramon Allones the ownership eventually changes over to the Cifuentes family. And the Cifuentes family were the owners of Partagas in Cuba pre-revolution. Now under that kind of masthead within the Partagas factory are the brands that we love and adore, but we loved and adored long before we kind of knew the brand history, which are Partagas, La Gloria Cubana, Bolivar, and of course Ramon Allones, all being, these flavor profiles over time and the style of these cigars. Of course, they haven't stayed exactly the same over time, but it's not. I don't think it's a real coincidence, I guess, that I know my palate's gravitated towards those, maybe as opposed to Hoyo or Cohiba or some of these other marcas out of the 27 or so. So I think that's interesting too. And then the last thing I'll say on it is they had like 20 Vitolas at one time, up prior to 94 when Habanos SA really took over and started to kind of cull out, for ease of production purposes, I guess you'd say. They started to cull a lot of these Vitolas down to just ensure better quality, ease of production, and so there are 3 left. You have the Gigante, which is a long cigar. You've got the Ramon Allones Specially Selected, which we're smoking now, and then of course the Small Club Corona, which is a really terrific smoke, which we could even talk about if we want to. But and then there's a ton of regionals, additional limitadas.
They use Ramon for a lot of regionals
and La Casa de Habanos releases. So Ramon Allones puts out actually more cigars than you, but they do a lot of that, which is somewhat of a marketing ploy, but also they put out some good cigars. and that's really the history. I mean, it's there's not a ton there, but they're super relevant in what their contributions are, have been to the cigar business overall in terms of their influence, and they're part of the Cifuentes family legacy. So it's kind of interesting.
I mean, my takeaway from that is they're innovators, which is a really cool part of their story that I certainly didn't know of. I mean, the 898 boxes and, cigar art and even banding cigars. I never knew that this brand was responsible for, leading the charge on all of those things. It's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's one of those brands that are overlooked, I think, by some, maybe just getting into Cuban cigars because there are only 3 shapes. And it doesn't it's not like Partagas, they don't have but 1,000 different vitolas, but they do put out some really nice regionals and some really nice limitadas. Some are better than others, of course, like all ELs and regionals. I mean, some of it's marketing and some of them are absolutely ridiculously outstanding, right? So like anything else off the island, but a great brand.
So we'll get back to that in a second because I have like 6 questions that have come into my mind right now. But
Yeah, me too.
what are you guys getting on this? Because mine's smoking brilliantly.
It's delicious.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very good.
I mean, just smell the aroma that's coming out of
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's delicious.
incredible.
Delicious smoke,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And this Robusto, I think for me, it's like the top, within the top 3-4 Robustos that, I would rate that in.
Yeah.
It's a
I
great,
agree.
great
Totally.
smoke.
You can't ever have enough of these.
I agree.
There's just no doubt about it.
And the beauty about, when you get, like this Robusto is out of a 50 cab, there's a difference when it's not in a 50 cab. When it's sitting in a 50 cab, all the flavors just kind of like settling in and, it's like all in like a, 50 sticks in one box. I think it makes a difference.
It's a flavor bomb.
Flavor bomb, yeah.
The thing that impresses me most about this cigar is the complexity of flavor that you get out of this Robusto. I mean, we think of a lot of the Cuban Robustos we smoke. There's so many great ones. I mean, we have a list of ones that we love and smoke regularly. But in terms of complexity, where I can actually pick out several distinct flavor notes I'm getting each puff of this cigar, the Ras is right up there at the top of just most complex Robustos for me.
Yeah.
Agreed, yeah.
I'd almost say the smoke is like, I want to use the word savory because it's just so full and delicious and it kind of hits all the bases. Like
That's a perfect description. Savory.
Savory,
It's awesome.
it's
Right on the money.
I love this cigar with coffee. I love it after dinner. I love it with a drink.
I have a question for all of you. How do you, this Robusto and the D4, how do you compare? What are there similarities? Are there different? What are the differences?
I mean, I'll just start by saying I think those are
We love those two.
Those are the two
Those
best
are the
Cuban
two.
Robustos.
No doubt
as far
about
as
it.
I'm
That's
concerned.
why I'm asking. Yep.
This has more citrus.
No.
You'll
What?
get, you'll get,
For the listener,
you'll get some
Smoker,
citrus
that's an
notes
inside
of it.
joke.
That's
an
a
inside joke.
bam bam.
I
Yeah.
get citrus from everything.
I think the aroma is actually, to me, better than the taste. The aroma is really exceptional. Even to eat from the first light, even till now.
Yeah, it does
Like
smell
the
great.
retrohale and just around it is really exceptional.
Just getting back to my question, would you put one above the other?
To me, it's kind of day by day. It's like, what do I reach for today? It's
They're
going to be
both
one of
very
these
good.
two.
I'll say this. I think we're
They're
going to answer
a little
that.
different.
I think we're going to answer that question when we rate this because
true.
we've smoked a D4 and we've rated it, and we'll smoke this and see where it lands.
Yeah, and I mean, I've smoked a lot of these, a lot,
We know.
and a lot of D4s, and we'll get to that. But yeah, and the quote unquote battle of Robustos, you throw the Hermosas in there, like the Schwa Supreme,
Bolivar.
and
Royal
the Bolivar,
Coronas.
Royal Coronas. There's something special about those as well. That's interesting.
I think though the thing going back to BAM on, I don't think we can answer the question of which is better yet. We're going to smoke through this, rate it, and we'll see. But what I think is interesting about both of them, both of these smoke really good young
It's
in
true.
a way that I wouldn't say that about some other Cuban Robustos. And so that's one of the things that I actually really appreciate about this is that whether I'm getting a 2019, a 2020, a 2015. It's just varying degrees of great. And that's what I love about this stick, just like I do the D4.
So I'm dying to take a sip of the Lagavulin Scotch that we have here. I'm dying to take a sip and pair this. So Lagavulin 16-year aged Scotch. Grinder, our resident Scotch expert. Tell us.
Not by any means.
By the way, I'm
Not
going to
by
sip
any
this. I'm going to sip this, and I want to hear.
It's great on the
Wow.
nose. Very nice on the nose.
Very nice.
I'm interested to see what Giz thinks of it.
Well,
'Cause
this was very controversial
It
with
was.
Giz the first time he had it.
Yeah,
We'll have to tell that
I
story.
had an amateur palate at the time.
No,
primitive.
Primitive, excuse me. Primitive palate at the
primitive
time.
palate.
It's a little more refined now.
Yeah, I would say you've rounded out a lot of the rough edges.
I have.
in a lot of ways. Look at your cabinet. Look at your whiskey selection.
It's true.
Yeah. So this is a personal favorite of mine. This is one of my favorite Scotch of all time. It has a lot of sentimental value for me because when I first started drinking it, I drank it with good friends of mine in Germany, still good friends of mine, Germans who, I was 23 years old working over there on a project and was there for almost a year. And we used to be in this little small town in the Rhineland called Gütersloh. And it was like this, there was nothing there except for this park hotel that we used to stay at. And they would say, this is the Scotch we're going to drink. We're going to try to drink this a lot. And then we did. It was really special. But it really kind of started my introduction to peaty Scotch. And, they make different, obviously, like all distilleries. They make a lot of different aged. These are sherry, mostly sherry casks, but they do sherry and bourbon casks, kind of mixed. And one of the funny things about this brand is that it's notoriously, or not notoriously, famously associated with Nick Offerman, who's Ron Swanson.
Ron Swanson, yeah.
Because Ron Swanson's character in Parks and Recreation was like the man's man. He like only ate red meat and was like no nonsense, had a certain proclivities and political views that were associated with that whole ethos. And he was just like
A lot like Poobah.
and since that episode, or not just that episode, that whole show, he has like I think he has his own Lagavulin Scotch. That's like an 8-year Nick Offerman special edition Lagavulin. But back to the basics, it's an Islay Scotch. So Islay Scotch is famously peaty because of all the peat marshes, especially in the southern part of the island. The most famous peaty Scotch is obviously Lafroig.
Yeah, I can't.
Lafroig.
That is. I can't do that.
It's
Yeah.
gasoline in
I
a
can't
bottle.
do
I
it. I'm
can't mess
sorry.
with that.
So I think this distillery is, just has been around for a while, probably early 1800s. Like most of them, and like most of them, they were probably distilling for a long time before then, illegally, because that's just kind of what the Scots did. And they, I think they actually got into quite a few legal battles with their neighbor, the Lafroig distillery, because they saw a couple of the distillers who founded the Lagavulin saw the success that Lafroig was having, and they said, we want to make something similar and make this an Islay kind of Scotch. And they did, and it turned out to taste very different. So if you tasted Lafroig and then you taste Lagavulin right next to it, you certainly notice a difference. The peat is more softer. There's more sweetness. You can definitely get some of the sherry.
in the Lagavulin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And to their benefit, I think it didn't taste like Lafroig. Now, one of the things that makes it different is that their pot stills are very shallow. They're like pear pot stills, and they're not as high. So what happens is this Scotch, it's kind of thick. Its viscosity it's a little heavy, and the reason is because when you have a pot still that short, a lot of the particulates they stay with they don't get sucked out of the not sucked out, but they stay with the vapors as they go up and it's distilled.
You know what's funny, as you say about viscosity, if you turn your cup to the side,
Oh yeah.
you'll kind of see it
It's like molasses.
It is.
Yeah.
It kind of stays on the side of the glass.
It's got some legs.
That's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
So that's why, is because it has these short pear-shaped pot stills, copper pots, and because it's shorter, a lot of the particulates in the peat remain in it, but also a lot of the particulates from the sherry casks remains in it as well. So
That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean it's something I drink a lot of. I pretty much only go for the 16. They make they do make an 8. Which isn't so bad. It's
Do they
pretty,
make a 12 or no?
I don't think they make a 12.
That's
actually.
interesting.
They don't make a 12. They do make a 10.
They make
Okay.
okay.
So so the world of peaty Scotch is not a world that that I swim in that much. Now, as I drink this, I almost want to say it's like the first time I had Campari, where I had you guys know what Campari is? Of course, right? Right. The first time I had Campari and the first time I had a Negroni, and it's like that. I'm not comparing the way they taste, but is it safe to assume that that these peaty Scotches take a little bit of time to be able to appreciate them fully? Like right out of the gate, when you have Campari and you drink a Negroni, you're like, that's really bitter. Like this is really peaty. There's like some bold, different kind of flavor. Maybe takes a little bit of time to get there with it.
To acquire a taste.
To acquire, yes, thank you.
You might say
to acquire a taste for it.
You might say it's moving from primitive to refined.
You might.
Oh,
another inside joke.
No, so
no, but I'm being serious.
lot like our
though.
moderator.
So, like,
I'll be your
almost
poster
need
child.
Yeah.
But like you almost need to give it a chance. So I guess what my point is a guy who doesn't drink a lot of peaty Scotch, is this something that you would suggest that the listener needs to kind of like say, okay, I'm going to try this and keep an open mind and try and really migrate towards it, because it could be a little bit. It's bold.
So I don't think this Lagavulin tastes as much like cough medicine as Lafroig does. And Lafroig is notoriously in those green bottles because they avoided customs in Prohibition, especially because they literally said it was cough medicine, and they had them in the green like medicine
But
bottles.
so is Lagavulin.
It's more like, I mean,
That's a green bottle.
I don't.
That's a green
That's a
bottle.
green
You
bro.
can call it
That's
a green.
pretty
Maybe
dark
that's
green.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not as green as the Lafroig. Who cares what the freaking color of the bottle is? But
you can
what I'm
acquire
saying
a taste for it.
So
though.
what I mean, I would say, of course, I'm going to say you should try it because I love it. And the funny thing for me though is when I didn't really drink a lot of Scotch when I first started drinking Lagavulin, and I didn't really like the flavor that much. I was like 22 and I wasn't really like into it yet. But this was different to me. It was like, wow, this is like, it kind of tastes like I'm in the woods, and kind of tastes like, some kind of campfire, and I love that about it. And I think if you appreciate that, obviously the flavor of cigars, I think it pairs nicely with any cigar.
It's pairing very well with this Ras.
How do you compare this to like Talisker 10?
Very similar. I would say Talisker has a lot more spice notes. It's nearly not peaty, in my opinion.
It was funny when Grinder and I saw each other the other day. I had ordered Talisker 10, and it's, I think, sweeter and spicier than this. Like a lot of cinnamon spice you get in Talisker that I feel like is not really,
But,
Yeah.
but less peaty.
I
way
don't
less, yeah.
I don't usually
Yeah, I
don't get
don't-
any.
I don't
But
think
is
it's
that
peaty.
is that also an Islay?
Talisker is an Islay. Well, actually, let me double check that. I'm pretty sure it is.
The peat is minimal though in that compared to this. But back to Lagavulin 16. So I've been drinking this for a very long time, and I think one of the beauties
No.
of Scotch is you have a range. And in my rotation over the years, and it's expanded certainly over time, but even in my early days of drinking Scotch, at one end of the spectrum was always Macallan and Balvenie. In the middle of that was always Oban. And at the end was Lagavulin. And that was as peaty as I ever liked to go. I mean, Lagavulin, missed it in a cocktail, something mixed just for that smoke flavor is great. But to sip Lafroig, I can't possibly do that. Lagavulin for me, if I can't have a cigar and I'm out with some friends at a bar and I'm craving a smoke, or I'm having dinner and I'm not going to be able to have an after dinner smoke, there's nothing better than a glass of Lagavulin because it's satisfying my itch for scotch, and that peaty, smoky character of it gives me almost that flavor profile and sensation of having a cigar, which is fantastic. And then for the times that I'm having a cigar and I want something peatier, it's just a perfect pairing with a smoke.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that because I don't drink much of this. Not for any particular reason. I just haven't had much of it. You know, you get in your habits and you like what you like, and that's exactly what it is. It tastes like, just kind of as someone who's naive to these peaty scotches, and or it has that charred, like almost like a charred smoky taste, and then right. So this is what I'm talking about. Like you can come around to this, like that's making me come around. Like I'm tasting that now that you're mentioning that, and it's making me come around to it. It's kind of nice.
Can I just quickly say, I have no authority to do this, but I feel like Grinder deserves like an honorary PhD in distilling because your
Absolutely.
knowledge, just hearing, I mean, I've known you now for a while, and just hearing you describe this stuff and without any preparation or notes, it's honestly incredibly impressive.
So as far as preparation and notes, I did get a curveball, and I wasn't sure about the Talisker, so I just checked. It isn't Islay, it's Sky, which makes sense because Sky's kind of that, it's more minerally Scotch.
Right.
So that's your answer. And I for some reason I knew it. I wasn't sure. So
But this tastes like a almost. Am I wrong if saying it tastes like almost like a campfire or like
very much so.
in a cup.
Yeah.
But
To
in
me-
a
to me,
good
this is
way.
this
In
is
a good
cold-
way.
It's
In
a
a
cold
very-
weather
very good
scotch.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cold weather scotch to me. Like I think in the summertime, I'm not going to go to this as much as I would when it's cold out. I
Right,
think this
right.
is a really nice winter, fall drink, and certainly with a cigar too.
For me, honestly, it's a lot better than I remember it to be. There's a great combination of sweetness and a little of the smokiness. A lot like this cigar we're smoking.
Yeah.
For me, there's sweet and savory in this ras, which I think pairs beautifully with this particular cigar.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Bam. Like at first, when I first lit the cigar, and then I'm getting there with the Lagavulin. I'm trying to say to I'm asking myself, is it fighting with each other? It's now completely settled in. The cigar's settled in. The scotch has opened up. I did put one ice cube in it, and the scotch has opened up a little bit. And I agree with you, Bam. It actually really does pair quite nicely.
One of the things that I like about drinking this scotch is that the first few sips, first few drams of this, it's a lot more pronounced. And then as you drink more of it, it begins to taste more like the sherry and the bourbon. You lose more. You lose the campfire.
That just happened. That's just happening.
It's like your mouth
That's
adjusts.
Just, it's like it's adjusting. That's why I was asking. Like this has got to be acquired.
Yeah,
You have to kind of like make an adjustment, like and get into it.
It takes patience. Like a lot of good things in life, you have to have good patience with it.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, I'm very proud of myself in my transformation as a primitive palate into now I'm going to go to dinner parties and I'm going to act like you and just tell these stories of how these things are distilled, and it's all to your credit, but I'm going to take all the credit because
Just make sure.
I'm now becoming an absolute expert on scotch because of Grinder
When
and
you
doing
go-
this podcast.
When you go to that dinner party, just make sure you do one thing:
Button down.
button down shirt.
Oh,
Yeah, you need to really
Listen.
Should we talk about this?
I think we
Because
need to.
Yeah. It's so
shit.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
You fucker.
So we have to do this. We have to do this. I'm going to start. I'm sorry. So, Gizmo, our esteemed producer, we're eternally grateful. And
Lovable.
Don't qualify the bullshit.
no, I have to qualify.
Lovable and
I have
huggable.
to qualify it because I feel like your nature is so technical that it lends itself to, just a very casual attire. And so Gizmo's always in a t-shirt and jeans and a hoodie. Sorry, that's actually probably the most important descriptor, a hoodie.
I love a hoodie, man.
The
Black
the biggest time of the year is when hoodie weather starts,
I
and
love-
it's like hoodie weather is here.
Hoodie, listen, there is no better seasonal change. It's not spring into summer, summer into fall, fall into a snowy winter. It's when hoodie season arrives. That is the best seasonal change at any given time of the year.
I mean, look, you dress like my 13-year-old son, which is fine. I mean, if we just
Who's also named Gizmo.
who's also named Gizmo,
Quite literally.
quite literally, yes, and he loves technical stuff as well. But if we shaved you, and he actually has an identical haircut to you as well, which is kind of funny. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'll pass the mic to these guys. But the clothes situation, it's you know, I think you have an opportunity. If this is a performance review, you do have an opportunity to evolve.
Well, I'm saying as one of all of us conducting the performance evaluation, I am impressed. I'm proud to say that there has been significant improvement made in that Gizmo has had some more formal settings and events that he's had to go to that I assume in the past somehow he would have wore a t-shirt to.
Plain black t-shirt.
A plain black t-shirt. And we have counseled him otherwise. And so much so, I told, you know, Gizmo, where we can relate is I hate shopping in a store.
Oh, God.
Absolutely hate it. It's like the worst thing I could possibly spend my time doing. So you just want to get in and out. Or if you're going to have to be in for a while, you want to have like a drink or be watching sports. So I told him about the Nordstrom men's shop in Manhattan where they have a bar and TVs, and he got well taken care of, got what he needed, actually put on a blazer for probably the first time in a few years, and I think he had a good experience.
Listen, the high school I went to, all right, I wore a suit every day. That was the wardrobe. So when I got into college, I already checked all the boxes with dressing nice. I don't need it in my life. If I'm going to a wedding or a funeral, I'm totally there. But if I'm going out with friends, I'm going out to dinner, it's just not interesting to me. My work, I own my own company. I you know, and what I do, it doesn't really require in any sense button downs and niceness.
Understood.
A little different than you guys.
Understood, but you still need to own a few dress shirts.
I now have two.
Okay, 2 is good. Blue and white?
Blue and black. And I have a white. I do have a white.
Wait.
No, I have a white one.
Thank
I do have a
you.
white. I'm sorry. I do have a white.
I mean, black is great. I have some black buttons.
No, I wear a black button down in jeans when I want to
For an
take it
evening
like,
out. For an evening
like
out.
Gizmo Plus, like a Gizmo,
Oh yeah.
like a Gizmo Plus setting. You know,
Yeah,
I'll wear the
yeah.
black button down, untucked, black button down.
That Nordstrom experience is great, though.
It's
Senator, yeah, it
unbelievable.
was unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I'm sorry. I'm just going to give a quick. I have to give them a plug.
kudos.
We're not
They're
getting
awesome.
paid for this at all.
It was a former client of mine. They're fantastic.
It's great. They're incredible. Again, as someone who absolutely hates going in a store and shopping, I got back from a trip and I realized that I left an all black suit in a hotel. And of course, I called the hotel. Oh, we have no idea. Someone stole it, obviously.
It's on eBay.
And I unfortunately had to go to a funeral right when I got back. And I needed that black suit. So I said, well, shoot, where am I going to go that within a day is going to tailor a suit and I'm going to be ready to go for this funeral? So I go, the Nordstrom men's shop in Manhattan had just opened and I read all this stuff. It's the greatest shopping experience ever. And I said, I just hope this will be quick. I walk in there. Woman looks at me, what are you here for? I told her black suit. She looks at me, she says, all right, you're a size this. I said, exactly. She said, I'm going to give you 3 suits. You tell me what looks like the best fit for you. She puts down 3. I say, that's probably the best one. Try it on. Tailors me. They take the measurements and she goes, go sit at the bar, have a drink, have some lunch. We'll be done in 30 minutes. I'm sitting there. There's no way. I sit at the bar. I have a drink. I have lunch. I think the World Cup was on, whatever year that was. And sure enough, 30 minutes later, I was out with a tailored suit and was ready to go. It was the greatest shopping experience of my life. So that's why I told Gizmo, for someone who it's painful to go through shopping, that's as easy as it's going to
Well,
get.
it's beautiful because you don't have to return to pick it up. So
Right.
let's say the taper, if they were doing a taper on the pants, that the taper was just you wanted it adjusted, or if you wanted the length that the hem adjusted, or if you wanted the jacket or the sleeves just taken up a little bit, you could do it right there in real time. Maybe you have to wait another half an hour, but they would do that. And you were in a pinch.
I had a funeral. Yeah.
You were in a pinch and you needed something in literally 48 hours. And we were like, do we have a I'm like, well, there's a tailor in town, but he's going to charge you. You know, the thing that Senator's getting at is that the tailoring at Nordstrom is it comes with the suit, which or whatever you're getting, the menswear that you're buying, whether it's a sport coat or pants or whatever, which is nice. And the tailors at the Manhattan store are good tailors. I would argue much better than the tailors in New Jersey. No offense to the tailors in New Jersey, right? Now, if you brought that same off the rack suit, you could run it over to a couple local tailors here, and there are some fantastic ones. But and you could get it for in maybe a day, but you were paying.
Absolutely.
You're paying
a
not
premium
just a
too.
little.
Yeah,
you're paying
a premium.
probably closer to $200
Yeah.
to get that to do everything depending on what you need. If you need the jacket taken in, the sleeves taken. I mean, for me personally, not to digress into a whole haberdashery conversation, but I mean, for me personally, at my size, right, at a 50 long, that I have to get actually taken in. I have to get into a 50 long. And then, first of all, they only have 2 suits off the rack for me. That you go in, maybe one, you go, what do you have in 50 long? They go, we got this and we got this. So that's a whole other can of worms for me personally. So what I can actually even find that's reasonable in sport coats off the rack, especially now with the supply chain problem, it's a problem. But anyway, so a good, a good tailor for me at my size is worth its weight in gold.
And to get it done fast in a pinch, man,
and to get it done fast in a pinch, that's the place you got to go.
The only other place I'm just quickly going to give a plug to, this is for any lizard out there that needs a
Big and tall.
That needs a quality suit, and that tailor and alterations can be done same day within hours. Suit Supply. They've got locations in New York. They're in DC, a few other major cities. Outstanding experience, painless in and out, very competent staff. Love that place.
Can I get a drink there?
They'll give you an espresso or water, but not an alcoholic.
Not bad.
drink.
Not bad at all.
You know, if you're a normal size, you can get great deals. You can get great deals at some of those off the rack, like whatever it is. They used to have a store called Saks off Fifth. They used to have some of the. Do they still have that?
Yeah.
And anyway, but if you're like a normal size, like a 46 regular, boy, oh boy, you get last year's stuff. You can get a $1,500 suit for $700, $600 if you're a normal size. If you're giganto, like me, or what they would call massive, quote unquote, you're shit out of luck.
So the off the rack thing is really actually that's Nordstrom has a Nordstrom rack. That's one of their highest grossing or most profitable segments is rack.
It is.
Yeah, and Rack's e-commerce.
They're actually bouncing off. They're separating.
Did I hear they're going to spin
Yes.
off Nordstrom Rack?
They are.
Probably because it's so much more profitable. You look at the margins; it's so much
I just
better.
heard that today.
And then
actually.
the other thing that Nordstrom does exceptionally well, it's different from any other retail location, is we're talking about this experience of buying stuff there, which is a great experience, right? And the people who work there, they get paid well and they do a good job.
They do. They'll give you your card. They'll give you the card. You can call them.
And the thing about the experience is those restaurants, they all operate independently. They're hire good chefs who run their own menu, who order their own shit, and they operate their own P&L. And they do it well. They take pride in their stuff. They're held to a high standard, the Nordstrom standard, but they're also their own standard. So they control their own menu. And
at least space.
All right. If I say any more about Nordstrom, they're going to owe us each a free suit. So I want to get back to this cigar.
Yeah,
and,
please.
Andy, listen, once we get out of the experience that I had in New York that you turned me on to, like shopping is just, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
That's the worst.
Like it's never going to happen. So yeah, back to the Ras and the Lagavulin. I mean, what a perfect pairing this ended up being. And
It's excellent.
It's
excellent.
They really complement each other.
So the Ras, I would say, as we're getting further with this stick, picks up a bit in strength. Not
Little
aggressively, but just a little bit.
I still get the sweetness all the way through.
Yeah.
Just the aroma from the smoke is
It's so good.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's more complex than I think some people people who know, I think, know, but it's more complex than it gets credit for. There's actually some floral notes in it, subtle, but they're there. There's this coffee and earth, and there's a nuttiness to the smoke. That's altogether different than a Partagas D4, which is why it just fits so nicely. It just slides right in. When you want a Robusto, it slides right in to a rotation very, very nicely.
Well, I want to talk about something we actually, for some reason, haven't yet mentioned about this cigar, and it's the construction. One of the things that early on, years ago, when I had, I guess, smoked my first Ras, that somewhat deterred me a bit was Ramon Allones, and I would put Bolivar in the same category. It's a more rustic construction.
Yeah, it's
I
very-
was
very
used to
toothy.
smoking a lot of Partagas, which is a very smooth, sharply constructed cigar, like very presentable. I mean, you could gift anyone a single of almost any Partagas, and it just looks beautiful.
Yeah, the seams are really tight.
Exactly. It just looks like an
Right.
expensive cigar, and they're not, all that expensive. And these cigars, Bolivar, Ramon Allones, you look at them and they look more rustic, and it made me question a little bit. I said, well, it doesn't look the most presentable. And then you light up that Ras, just like you light up a Bolivar, and you're like, wow, the flavor is just incredible out of this cigar. So I just say that because for anyone who's ever seen one of these or picked one up and maybe been a little bit skeptical or doesn't know as much about the brand, like a Partagas or a Monte Cristo or an Upmann, it's worth it beyond words. I mean, it's incredible.
I have a question, and maybe that points to the answer. And I think that we're going to kind of have a few different from what we're talking about. But going back to what you said, Poobah, some of the history of Ramon, for how long that they've been around, parallel to the timeline of Partagas and Upmann and some of the others. Why is this an overlooked marca? But not the folks that know, not the folks who are deep into Cuban cigars, but for somebody who's just getting into it, why is it not right next to an Upmann or a Partagas?
I can answer that.
Why?
I have a hypothesis as to why.
I'm curious.
And I think because a brand name like Partagas is also just pure marketing. It's come out of, it's ubiquitous because of the they're made in the Dominican, right? The stuff that's distributed by whether
General
it's
Cigar?
General Cigar or Tatis or whoever does it. I don't smoke them, but that name, like the Monte Cristo name, the Partagas name, this isn't one of the Ramon Allones is not manufactured in Nicaragua or the Dominican Republic. It's not
Cohiba.
one of those names. It's truly a Cuban brand, a Cuban marca. So the name recognition isn't there. So like that cachet, like when you look at the band, it's kind of an understated band. It's not as familiar. So it's branding, really.
Well, so I think that's part of it. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction.
And that's what I assumed was going to happen. I feel like there was going to be a
Yeah.
couple different
And the
components.
I
Batobas
think-
were cut.
Yeah, and I was curious why they did. I mean, Habanos has no explanation for most things, but
There's that, but I'm still
Curious
going
why.
another direction. I think also their distribution is just not as far and wide as a lot of these other brands. And, sure, you can argue that the demand's not there, so that's why maybe they're not distributed in all these places. But when I travel to Europe and Asia, the only cigars you'll get, first of all, are going to be Cubans. You'll never find Padrones, Nicaraguans, Dominicans in any of these countries. Everything is Cuban. And the Cuban brands that I see there is always Partagas and Monte Cristo are the two guarantees at any cigar place you go anywhere in Europe or Asia. I actually have never seen a single Ramon Allones of any sort in London, Paris, Singapore, none of the above. I've not seen one I can buy there.
Not surprising. They just don't make as many.
yeah. It's interesting. I mean,
They don't. They don't make as many as many cigars.
So I just looked up.
So yeah.
So I just looked up. AJ Fernandez is making the Ramon Allones in Nicaragua now.
Yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah.
All right, and I
That
didn't know
guy's
that.
making
Yeah,
so
it's
So
funny you
I
mentioned
didn't know
that.
that either. I had to look it up.
The only
Yeah.
reason I knew that, and it's
Is
funny,
that true?
I texted
didn't know
Gizmo
that. I
this.
had no idea.
Yeah.
I texted
That's
Gizmo
right.
this just probably 2 nights ago. I saw Someone reviewed an AJ Fernandez Ramon Allones cigar. So the reason that AJ Fernandez is making these, so I'm previewing what hopefully will be a future episode.
Is this
'Cause I-
recent
Yeah.
or
No,
okay?
well, I don't know how recent, but it is recent.
Relatively recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing I read was that AJ Fernandez, his father, his favorite Cuban cigar brand was Ramon Allones. So he, I guess, had reached out and formed this partnership with Ramon Allones to make you said it was in the Dominican?
Nicaraguan.
Or Nicaraguan. A Nicaraguan Ramon Allones made by AJ Fernandez. And I saw recently some very good reviews about this torpedo that they make. So I had texted Gizmo saying we should consider reviewing it as a New Worlds, but with a sort of homage to Cuba
Great idea.
cigar. So
That's a
that
great
may be
idea.
a future episode we
Great
do.
idea.
I did not know. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I had to look it up.
I just, and same, we talk about us, our experience with this cigar. I mean, I found it through you guys, but it certainly was never even on my radar as a cigar smoker. Even when I wasn't smoking Cubans, it was always obviously Cohiba, Upman, Partagas, Monte Cristo. But really, that was it.
This is the first time I ever smoked it.
Yeah, you haven't had
Wow.
it before.
Your
Re-
first Ras.
Is that right?
I've
that
never
really?
had.
Wow.
I've never had a Ras.
I had this cigar in Mexico in '99
Wow.
Of course you did.
at the La Casa del
So,
Havana.
there's
And
a
it's-
couple
it's
things you can
fantastic.
always rely on: death and taxes, and the other is Rooster flexing in the corner on his cigars,
And when he smoked them.
and when he smoked them.
No, but to your point, Giz, on the Ras, and this goes to what Rooster was saying earlier about this coming from a 50 cabinet of these. The first Ras cigars I had tried were out of a dress box of 25. And for the listener, that's just that cardboard box, essentially. They were not nearly as enjoyable as this cigar is out of a 50 cabinet. So for anyone who goes out and tries to buy these after, and you should, they're very affordable and they're widely available. If you can get a 50 cabinet in a cedar wooden box, they're
That's the way to
just
go.
so much better. And I don't, you were talking about what happens, the magic inside of that cabinet. There's something special there. It's just not the same in a dress box.
I'll sign up for that if any of you lizards have a impending.
Well, you can go shopping in Rooster's tower.
DM me.
I'll DM you on whatever social media modicum you have going on right now.
Like any 50 cab, it's when you first open it and you slide the lid back. And I always do this. I always grab the ribbon and I lift it up and you smell it.
I'm starting to get goosebumps during this.
It's absolutely fantastic. And we've talked about, wow, what I would love a 50 cabinet of Partagas D4s. Wouldn't that be amazing? The thing with the Ramon Allones, now I've had good 25 count boxes. I've bought 25 count boxes, multiple of Ramon Allones. I've had good ones. The little bit of a problem that you can run into with those is one, first off, the aging, of course, obviously in a 50 cab is going to be better because everything shakes hands, right? It's like a big marinade. Two, the semi box press that happens in that dress box.
Yeah, they're like
when
stuffed in there.
Well, yes, they become kind of semi box press, which could potentially lead to a draw issue, weirdness, a weird burn. It can. But I've had good. I just want to caveat by saying it's not that binary. Like you can definitely find some like a 25 count box of Ramon Allones specially selected, and they can be really, really fantastic. So, but you're way better off because it's such a staple, and because it's in my personal opinion, it should be in most cigar smokers' humidors. If you like this style of cigar, if it's going to be there, you might as well just get the 50 cab and bite the bullet and do it. Now, if you're having problem accessing the cigar for a cabinet for whatever reason, just get the 25 count box and roll the dice, because most of the time you're gonna be okay, but you could run into some issues. And to Senator's point before, yes, is the construction of these always spectacular or always consistent? No, but majority of the time they are pretty consistent.
And
But you're going to run
regardless-
into some weirdos once in a while.
And regardless, the flavor always delivers.
And it always
That's what
delivers.
keeps us coming back to this cigar.
What's the
Yeah.
price on this?
$12, $14 somewhere in there.
It's
depending on where
ridiculously
you get it.
affordable.
I mean, it's tough right now given the supply issues and the price gouging and stuff, but you can usually get a 50 cap for somewhere around $625, $650.
That never ceases to amaze me how there's these Nicaraguan, Dominican brands that are charging up, crazy prices for these cigars that are okay. And then you have Cubans that are still, some of the best in the world, and they're very, very reasonable. $12, $13 cigar, that's world class all day, every day. I mean,
Yeah, well, you got to think too. I mean, the Nicaraguan and the Dominicans, I mean, you're paying for the marketing dollars. You're paying for the,
right.
Cubans, they're not paying a
But-
decent wage.
No,
you
but
know,
you're,
to the
you're,
people
you're,
rolling
you're
them,
also
but-
paying for shipping, right? I mean, the landed cost for these, I'm assuming that's what you mean, $13 is landed cost. If you get this in Spain, you're not paying that many euro for it.
Well, yeah, but if you get them in London, forget it. The tax and
in
the
London,
heavy
this is a
tax.
$40 US stick.
Yeah.
Well,
It's outrageous.
that's
The thing, to kind of piggyback on what Senator and everybody's been saying, my view is that if you can get a cigar from Cuba in a 50 cab, if you can afford it and if you can find the space for it and if you like the cigar, you always have to go that route, because I have never had a cigar that's come out of a 50 cab that has performed worse than a cigar coming out of a dress box. And that I think is just a very consistent experience with Cubans.
And to the listener, if you can source that and maybe you're not sold on that cigar yet, you maybe never even tried it, and you don't want to be stuck with 50 of those cigars, split them up with friends. That's what we do all the time. I mean, we source 50 cabs and each guy goes in and we get to try a little bit of everything. So I hope other lizards are doing the same thing.
Sometimes you might be able to find like a 5-pack.
Yeah, some stores
Try
sell
it.
singles.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get singles and try them. And then if you love them,
Because
Save up
not
and buy.
everyone out there is going to have like a huge cabinet to store like, 50 cabs. If you have a small humidor, it's going to take over the whole box. I mean, you're going to take them out and put them in the box or Tupperware or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, that's true. I will say, because I think we're in the last third here, right? So we're getting close to the end. A tasting note that I find to be it down to the like whistle to whistle. This is a 2019 cigar. Whistle to whistle, it's really good. Like down the stretch, this thing is really a good everyday rotation cigar. Like it's so solid. Like it's just, I mean, is it is it your top tier of all time? No, but I mean, it's really good. It stays kind of mellow. Like there's not a ton of rough edges down the stretch. It builds in strength and flavor. Just performs super.
It delivers.
It delivers, man. Like
And
it really does.
I think the last point you just said there, Poobah, is important. That there's not really many rough edges down the stretch. For a cigar that puts out as much flavor as this does, the challenge I feel like with cigars for a lot of smokes that put out a lot of flavor, if they're not aged long enough or they're just not that great a cigar, they've got some real serious rough edges down the stretch. And this doesn't have that, which is what's so remarkable about this
there's
cigar.
kind of a mellowness to it, but it delivers. But like there's nicotine in here. Like it does give you that lift. It gives you a little lift. It gives you a little. It's like medium to like medium.
Yeah, medium full.
And it gives you that little. It delivers.
It's perfectly balanced.
I want to ask this question about you, and it's been mentioned a few times. This everyday rotation, category. Do you think size has a lot to do with that?
Size matters.
Absolutely.
Do you think because Robusto
Always.
seems to be the kind of sweet spot for everyday rotation, in my opinion. And this is coming from a guy who I smoke a lot of different random cigars, different brands, different origins, different all that shit.
Yeah, you're Rando Commando.
new lizard name.
So it depends on the time of the day too, right?
Yeah.
So if you want like a quick stick, you might want to do a Panatella or a Petite Corona or even a Corona size. But a Robusto is a good 45 minutes to an hour smoke. So
I think that's why it fits in. Is it's not a huge time commitment. You can slot it in wherever. And for me, this is why I say this is a great daily, great price, great flavor, great performance. But it fits well with a coffee. It fits well after lunch. It fits well after a steak.
Fits well with the
slots in
Lagavulin.
anywhere.
It slots in anywhere.
It really does.
To Grinder's point there, I feel like the Robusto is such an important and foundational size in the cigar world in the sense that you think about our lives, everything is almost blocked out in hour increments. You think of
It's
when
true.
we're like during our workday, how meetings are set, how we block any amount of time in our minds. I've got an hour I can devote to X or Y. And I love a Robusto. And I would venture to say that we probably all smoke Robustos more than any other shape. It's not to say that that's our favorite. I'm sure it's different by each lizard, but I think we've probably smoked more Robustos than any shape of cigar. And I think it's because it fits so perfectly into your daily life, which is why it's become part of that rotation. I mean, we love Churchills, but we can't always devote an hour and a half, 2 hours to a cigar. We love double Coronas. We can't always have 2 hours. We love petite Coronas, but sometimes 35 minutes is too short. And so I just appreciate, that's why the Battle of Robustos for me has always been the most fun, because that's the exact shape that's always going to fit in my life no matter what. And I want to know exactly what the best Robustos are that I should be slotting into those moments.
So what aside from this and a D4?
The Bolivar Royal Corona.
Exactly
That's a
right.
good one.
Schwa
Exactly
Schwa
And
Supreme.
Schwa Supreme.
What's the
El,
Schwa?
El Rey del Mundo.
Oh, we should try. I've never heard
Oh,
of that.
it's wonderful. They're really good.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah. I
And,
mean,
Different.
Are
Much
they easy
different.
to find or no?
You can find them.
So it's
You
like
can find
D4s
them.
and RAS seem
They're not as
relatively-
ubiquitous as a D4.
Okay.
There's
Not
also
nearly.
the St. Louis Ray.
St. Louis Del Rey.
Del
or-
Rey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of what Rooster mentioned, I feel like the Boulevard Royal Corona you can definitely easily find and source. What we're smoking, the RAS, you can. The D4 that we've reviewed,
The
Pargas, you
Hoyo Epi 2.
can. Epi 2, you can. I think the only one that's probably harder is that Schwa Supreme. That's not the easiest to find because they don't.
It's
They
not
don't
as
make
popular.
As many.
Yeah.
And
Well, they also
Cohiba.
just don't make
Cohiba
as many.
Robusto.
Coro
Yeah.
is a Cohiba Robusto is a very popular Robusto. And you know, for the listener out there, you can find what Habanos calls the selection Robustos anywhere between say $100, $125. And what you do is you get 5. And I think we may have talked about this on a previous pod, but it's a good one if you're looking for Robustos. You get 5 Habanos, Cuban Robustos. You get a Cohiba, a Monte, a Romeo, a Partagas, and a Hoyo in a box.
What's
So
the Monte Robusto?
I think
what is that number?
I don't know. I don't know if they make it. They may make it just for this specific selection because I know they do that with. They have a petite Robusto selection as well.
Well, the Petite Edmundo.
That's
Right.
but I'm saying I think they make some sticks just for this. But the Monte Cristo is called a Robusto. So I'm not sure if what I'm reading is incorrect, but yeah, so you can get that at a pretty good price pretty much anywhere. It's a nice venture into finding maybe which of the 5 main brands, according to Habanos, that fit your palate the
So-
best.
I love this cigar. I mean, it's great.
really nice.
I definitely want to, procure some.
I can't believe you've not had this before.
Never. No.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Shocking.
so just to clarify, there is a slight difference between technically what a Robusto is and what you'd call a Hermosos.
Oh yeah.
So it's a slight difference. They cut their convergent, of course. So like the Schwa Supreme is technically a Hermosos.
Oh, okay.
Right. And like I think the short punch to punch is
It's like a short Robusto.
it's a
That's
Hermosos.
it.
It's
It's
just
shorter.
slightly shorter.
Is it a little fatter too?
no,
no.
it's a 50
Okay.
ring gauge.
Okay.
They're 48 instead of 50, and they're just slightly shorter and slightly just a couple millimeters slimmer. You know what I mean? But there's something about those too
Great
that
stick.
people love. It's almost a Robusto. It's like a Robusto, slightly
Is
diminutive.
54 the cutoff for Robusto? Because I always 5 by
50.
54.
I would
is
think 50 is.
50.
Yeah. Because 54, that's a QD 54. That's a
Yeah,
Partagas
that's a
E2.
big-
Oh yeah,
That's a
yeah,
pretty
That's
big
getting
boy.
into Toro
Yeah, that's a
territory.
pretty big
Yeah,
boy.
that's big.
What a great cigar, guys. What a great cigar. You guys ready to give the formal lizard
Let's
rating?
do it.
Giddy up.
All right, Rooster, you're up tonight.
So I'm going to give it a 9.0.
Perfect.
It's to mimic how Pagoda presents his score sometimes. Who's not here tonight? It's a 9. It's a 9. It's a 9. For me, it's a 9. It's a 9. And it is a 9 for me.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you. This is a 9.
This is a 9.
This is a 9, a 9, and it's
Or
a 9.
Gary Delabate, a 9. It's a 9 for me. It's a 9 for me because it's always in my humidor. It's always in my rotation. It's just so solid, and I don't think we have to ruminate on it. I don't have to ruminate on it much more than that.
We may end up with a rookie score. I am also at a 9.
I'm also at a 9. Herman Cain, 999.
You sound like a German. 999.
Grinder.
To echo Rooster score 9.0.
And finally, Bam Bam.
Yeah, I'm definitely at a 9. My fingers are burning, and I don't want to stop smoking this.
I don't think you have to do the math on this.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The lizard math is getting very complicated. 9.0.
9.0.
9.0.
Wow.
A flat 9.
Highly recommended.
Highly recommended. yeah.
Strong recommend.
Go for the 50 cab.
Please.
Yeah, and like I said, you can find. Unfortunately, this cigar is not in that selection Robusto, but you can find singles out there on various sites. I don't know, Rooster. Do you know what sites sell singles?
I want to talk about our ratings, though, because if I could give decimals on the rating, I actually would have gone with like an 8.8 or something, actually slightly just under a 9. And here's
That's
why.
surprising.
Here's why.
So we're going there because I can go there too.
No, I'm not. Hang on. Let me just hear me out. Just hear me out.
We're breaking
We
because
have
I
to.
can
This is
totally.
breaking
We have to.
protocol.
We have to. The
Breaking
reason I'm
protocol.
saying that, the reason I'm bringing this up, we're all at a 9. I think this is the first cigar we've ever reviewed that every single lizard had the same score. First one. I know I've had to average out every single time the score. This is the only one. No math was required. And so I wanted to split hairs for a second because Bam earlier talked about comparing this to a Partagas D4. And that's where I think when we're talking about Cuban Robustos, especially the best Cuban Robustos, this is where you have to split hairs to figure out if you had to crown one as the best, why you might do that. And I just want to say on this cigar, the flavor is why I gave this a 9, why I rounded up. The flavor is unbeatable. I love it. I think clearly we all love it. The things that I have to knock slightly, and I'm watching Gizmo doing exactly what I'm about to say right now, is I had to touch this up a few times as I was smoking it. I'm watching Gizmo do the same thing. When I light a D4, Grinder is raising his
same
hand.
thing throughout the whole smoke.
Yeah,
Same
I
thing.
didn't have to do that. I did it once.
I completely disagree. Me personally, I'd go above a 9.
All right,
Yeah.
well, hang on. Let me
For me.
finish, and then I want to do the same.
No
Let's just
doubt.
go to the
But
tape. What
let's
was the
do this.
D4?
Let's do this. So
Let's
hang
do
on.
it.
Hang on.
Check your RH, guys.
Hang on. Let's
Oh,
do
yeah.
this.
Go to the
Let's do
bathroom and
this.
come back.
So, let's have that conversation. That's why I'm bringing this up. So for me, I've watched a number of guys, including myself, had to touch up this cigar. This is not abnormal for me. I routinely feel like with this cigar, I do have to touch it up. Now it's worth it because the flavor that it delivers is just so outstanding. I'm happy to do it. It doesn't bother me. But as I have to evaluate Cuban Robustos, with a D4, I rarely have to touch up that cigar. Rarely. With this cigar, I feel like I regularly have to do that. I mentioned that the construction, it's not beautiful. It's an outstanding smoke, but does it look like a beautiful cigar? No. It looks like a great cigar. So for me, the D4 is always going to be a little bit ahead of this cigar because when I factor in construction, burn, flavor, all of those things, I'm going to put a D4 slightly higher. But I take nothing away from this cigar. The flavor alone is so outstanding that's why I gave it a 9.
Does
So that's
anyone
my
remember
perspective.
the score of the D4?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was the score? I wasn't here that night.
I think it was a 8.8.
Oh.
Maybe. No? Under 9?
No,
was it not? Maybe it was
It
a
might be
9?
under 9.
I think it was
Maybe-
a 9 too.
Maybe somebody gave it a 10.
I think it's over a 9.
Maybe a 9.
Yeah,
I
I think
it
it
was a
scored
9 too.
slightly
Really?
higher.
So,
Really?
so
Someone gave
lizard
it
math
10.
prevails. The law of averages worked out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I were here that night, I would have given a D4 an 8
And this a 9?
and this a 9
Wow.
from the point of view of flavor. I don't get the strength of the flavor, not the strength and profile, but the flavor that I get in this RAS I don't get that much flavor in the D4. Now, the D4 is a more refined cigar. It's a little smoother, creamier. It's different. I think it's a different cigar. What do you guys pursue when you go after a cigar? Is it the flavor or how it looks? I mean,
To me, it's always going to be flavor. I really don't care how it looks.
it's always
Right.
flavor, but I'm
Right.
sorry. Like I
Right.
feel like we've had this
Right.
conversation where
We have.
it's a variety of factors, but flavor is always the lead in that.
no doubt.
For
But
me now,
if the flavor is amazing and the construction is terrible, then it's going to ruin the experience. So that's why all of them play a role.
Yeah, when you're rating a cigar, I mean, you want to look at everything, right? You want to look at construction,
Right.
how it burns, the smoke output, how many times you're touching it up, the flavor,
Consistency.
all of that.
I don't
Consistency.
particularly care how it looks if all those other things are great. I have a box of Partagas P2s from 17 that are some of the ugliest cigars that I've ever gotten, and
They're
are
fantastic.
phenomenal.
So
Everything else checks the box.
If you're checking all those boxes, then yeah, the D4 wins. If you want to look at it winning and losing, but
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's all things
yeah,
considered.
agreed. Okay.
well, what I go after though is definitely at these days probably
Flavor?
no the recommendation from you guys. That's
Oh.
probably what.
Yeah.
That's
the
where I
the
start.
referral is always going to be the number
Yeah.
one thing. All right, boys, a 9.0 for the Ramon Allones Specialty Selected, and we'll see you next week.
Keep smoking.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, loungelizardspod, P-O-D, that's loungelizardspod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.